So in today's video I want to talk plants and more plants and stuff. So in all my videos I'm talking about the Walstad method lately, and as I say, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like a bit over talking about it. Like, I think with my videos what I've been trying to talk about is like hacks from the Walstad method, and principles from the Walstad method that we can apply to other more traditional aquariums, because there's a lot of stuff in the Walstad method, as most people know. I mean, what I find is when people hear of like dirty aquarium, straight away it just seems to be synonymous with no water changes. Now, I'm not a big fan of no water changes, promoting the idea of not water changing, and it just, over the years, I have more success with water changes than I do without water changes. So it's just something that it just doesn't make me feel comfortable when I'm not changing water on a regular basis. Now, if that's your goal, to not change water, then that's your goal. So I'm not going to tell you not to do it if that's what your goal in the hobby is, not to do, change water. So this tank's an example of it. I've got a ton of aerial advantage going on. I've got salvinia and duckweed. I've got duckweed in all my tanks at the moment. It's not my favourite floating plant, because every time I want to do something in the tank I end up to my elbows in duckweed, but it is what it is. It's fantastic for pulling nutrients out of the water. So obviously I've got a combination of heavy root feeding plants in the tank and stem plants. So I've got stems that naturally want to feed. So stems naturally want to feed out the water column, don't they, and absorb the nutrients, and the heavy root feeders are getting down. I don't really gravel vac me. If it's getting dirty, obviously I'll clean it up. There's no point going to extremes as far as I'm concerned with being stubborn about it. I'm just trying to use these things as a way to help me, and I will do regular water changes. I've been doing regular water changes on this and at those fertilizers, and my goal is to use these principles from the Walstad method to make my water to a higher standard than I feel if it had no plants in it, then there's nothing pulling nutrients. So I feel like my parameters have fluctuated more, so I feel like it gives you a little bit of a buffer zone where you don't have to be on your parameters as much. I'm comfortable to let it go. The tank's the same. As I say, I've been calling this my pre-Walstad tank. I want to set up a Walstad tank, and I've got these plants here that are massive advantage in the Walstad method. We've got LOD Adenta, which is just, I've talked about it time and time again. It absorbs loads of nutrients. It can use your KH in your water if the carbon is low, if the CO2 levels are low. You've got Val, which will fly around your tank, get the roots down there. These plants can get oxygen down to soil if it's oxygen deprived, and help other plants get going and stuff. And it's just I'm not promoting loads and loads of stem plants, because as Corey's called them on his channel, in the industry they call them buying dyes. Now I think everything's in the name with that. So as you can see, I tend to stick to the plants that Diana Walstad promotes in the book that she's written, and I try to use that in my tanks, the principles of the Walstad method, to help me keep my water to a higher standard. I'm not so much saying I don't want to do no water changes and stuff, but my channel, I try and aim at more experienced fish keepers, people who've got fish rooms, stuff like that. And obviously I've got a circle of friends who do the same. Like this room is linked with at least 4 other fish rooms that I can think of, and an example of that is, like, I've got fish that other people have got, and we've kind of, if he's struggling with this, or if I've got like 4 male plecos and he's got 4 females, then it's just a swap rather than us both having to go to the shop and buy more. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. If you've got friends who you can help out, if I know other shrimp breeders, and if their colony crashed, I'd give them some. And it's these people, and I'm trying to say, they've got fish rooms and sterile tanks, and I'm like, just get some plants in there, guys. And they're like, well, plants never do well in my tank. And it's all this, like the aquascapers, the high-tech aquascapers. I think a lot of experienced fish keepers are anxious about keeping plants, because they'll be judged by aquascapers who've got 1 or 2 tanks, and they spend about 8 hours a day with wet sleeves. maintaining the tanks, and not all of them tanks are spot on, you know, they all have imperfections. There's algae in them tanks, there's nutrient deficiencies in them tanks, there's, you know, all the problems that everyone's having with fish and plants, these guys are having as well. They're not immune to them, they're still fighting the same battles we are. And it's these people that I'm trying to say, well, apply some of these principles, the Walstad method, get some plants in your tank, and it'll help you in your fish room with your breeding projects and stuff like that. And for new people, my argument would be, put some gravel in your tank, put some plants in your tank, get some classic fish, you know, classic plants, classic fish. Like, I think with, like, when you go into hardcore mode with the Walstad method, you're like, right, so I can only have low stock of fish, I can only feed lightly, and I think that kind of contradicts what a lot of fish keepers want to do. So I'm like, well, keep the fish you want, feed heavily, keep doing your water changes and get plants in. That'll help you keep your parameters more stable and enjoy your breeding projects. For new fish keepers, I'm like, well, why don't you set the tank up like this kind of thing? I've got sand, I've got gravel, I've got a mix of the both. There's no soil in here at the moment. I could put soil in underneath, I've been talking about doing that. But I've still got plecos and guppies and angels. So what I'm saying is, as a new person, you could set a tank up similar to this, and then you're growing out enough plants for your next tank, and you know, you could pull, like I've got angels in here, if you put like 6 baby angels in, a few baby plecos in, put other types of fish in, like rams, all sorts, cories, pistos, anything you want. Like, I'm not saying mix everything together, I'm saying you can pick which ones you want, do your research, pick which ones you want, get them in, make sure they're compatible, get your plants in, and then when you grow your angels out, and you could say, well, I've got a pair out of them, and then you can put that in a separate tank, and you've already got the plants, you can set everything up, and then you've got 2 tanks, you've got a breeding project, you can expand your hobby from there. And you might say, well, I want to be a hardcore aquascaper. Go for it, have fun, get your CO2, get your ferts, everything, but at least this gives you the chance to have a go and see what you're into, because how else are you going to find out? It just seems like everyone's on various forms of social media. I want me to talk in depth about the Walstad method, they're asking me questions about it, and I'm making videos to answer these questions and stuff, and I just don't want to send people off on too much of a tangent. If I am, I'm just, you know, the whole point of this room for me, the channel, was to converse with other, to keep in touch with other experienced fish keepers, and I don't know, maybe inspire new fish keepers in the hobby, and just give a pragmatic approach to how to use different methods that I've learned along the way, like, you know, Tom Barr's estimative index dosing. I'm using principles of that, I'm using principles of the Walstad method. I'm learning off a lot of people who've come before me, and that's what I'm trying to promote. Take care, guys, see you soon.